being able to like share my story with people and inspire and motivate them and the members who are coming into our gym, and being able to share with me and open up with me as to why they're there. Because once again, everyone has different goals and it's awesome. Like, I think CrossFit is just a great exercise program in general, like to get fit and healthy, but it's so life-changing too. There's such a deeper underlying level to CrossFit that you don't experience in a lot of other, fitness regimes or regimens. And it's just that community, that encouragement, being able to progress and do things the way you want. Like, I just had a member the other day going, he's trying to get a pull up and he's like, oh, one day. And I was like, I used to say that too. I used to say one day I'm going to be able to do it. I mean, guess what? Now I can. So just keep doing it.
Hello, and welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Dr. Julie Fouché, family physician and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring you information and inspiration to help bridge the gap between fitness and medicine and support your journey toward your healthiest self. This episode is one of a series of Pursuing Health stories. Here, I feature the inspiring stories of regular, everyday people who've used lifestyle to overcome some incredible health challenges. In this week's episode, Haley Morrone shares her story. She experienced sexual abuse as a child, which led her down a path of depression, drug and alcohol use, and significant back pain from being overweight. She knew she wanted to be healthier for her kids, and luckily, Haley's friends and family didn't give up on her, and she didn't give up on herself. Taking one small step after another, Haley eventually transformed her own health and is now passionate about using her experience to help others. Today, she's a certified yoga teacher, a CrossFit Level 1 trainer and affiliate owner, and she's completed her Precision Nutrition Level 1. I was incredibly inspired by Haley's story and the way she changed her own trajectory and how she has such a huge heart for empowering others to do the same. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Before we dive into the episode, I do want to make it clear that this podcast is for general information only and does not provide medical advice. I recommend that you seek assistance from your personal physician for any health conditions or concerns. Well, welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm really excited to be here with Haley Morrone and excited to dig into your story, your life story, and your story with CrossFit, which is really, really incredible. So thank you for taking the time and being willing to share your story with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm so excited.
Yeah, well, why don't we just start at the beginning? I know that, you have overcome a lot of challenges and obstacles that you had early in life. And had some trauma in your childhood. And so why don't you just start by sharing some of those things, and then we'll get into sort of what that led to and then how you found CrossFit and how you overcame them.
Okay, perfect. I do have it's hard for me to kind of talk about my childhood because I have a lot of very happy memories. And then I have a lot of traumatic memories that stem around sexual abuse. Some of my earliest memories up until about the age of 10 years old. And I was sexually abused by a family member, one of my grandfathers. So there's like a family connection, a lot of trust, and of course, a lot of trauma that kind of came with that. Hiding secrets. I always say I became the best secret keeper and shover downer because I was taught from a very early age to keep secrets and things like that. So it's hard for me to talk about that, obviously, but it's very important for me to share it as well, because it's important to know that there is a lot of mental health that, obviously comes with any traumatic experience, but especially in a young developing child, just kind of unsure of the world and being led by adults that are trusting them. And then obviously being, hurt and abused or in any way, shape, or form from those adults. So it's very confusing. It's a very confusing time to talk about, but also very important. So I do, because obviously that childhood trauma kind of stems into different ways for me and, for everyone else. So a lot of that led to self-esteem issues. And then I would kind of manifest that trauma or that reaching out in different ways. So there was a lot of growing into my teen years and so forth. Then a lot of drug use, just a lot of basically anything that I could kind of hold on to numb the experiences of my childhood. So.
Wow. Well, thank you for being willing to share that. I know I'm sure not easy to talk about. And I appreciate you. It sounds like you have so much insight into now, years later, into the impact that it had on you and the way they were able to talk about it. So I appreciate you being able to share that with us. And I'm so sorry that happened to you and that you have had to go through everything that you have. Can you talk about how, obviously I can't imagine trying to make sense of all that as a child, but what are some of the ways you said maybe you got into drugs when you were a teenager, but some of the ways that you try to cope or things that then led to in your life as a kid?
So there is a good, I don't know how to explain it, good, maybe positive aspect to the situation. My mom saw signs in me. She reached out, she confronted me, she pulled me out of the situation immediately and got me into therapy. So from almost immediately, I knew, and even before then, I knew it was wrong and I knew it wasn't my fault, but there's still shame that goes along with that. So I was pulled out, I was put into group therapy. And I actually think at the time, it was, everyone felt like it was the right thing to do, to put a bunch of girls who kind of had their own experiences together so they didn't feel so alone. But on the flip side, there was this part of it that I would hear worse things and almost think to myself, well, at least it didn't that it wasn't that bad. I didn't have it that bad. Which, looking back on it, was kind of it was hard for me to understand because I was validated 100% in the trauma that I had experienced. And so I don't know if maybe that's why I just didn't kind of know how to handle those feelings. And because it was almost like, oh, wow, I've heard these worse stories. I don't have it that bad. I don't think that I got the help I needed for as long as I needed it. But there were other things that kind of happened along the way. I was very active as a child. I loved to dance. I loved gymnastics. And then as this kind of all came to light, I lost the passion for that. So I just stopped. I stopped everything. I became very depressed. It was a lot of like, I had to go talk to the police. I had, it was just reliving the experiences over and over again. And I just felt very outcasted and very alone. So I didn't have many friends in school at this point. And this was probably heading into like junior high and high school. So already a really challenging time in any child's development.
For anyone. Yeah.
And I just felt very alone. So when I became like a teenager and I started hanging out with the wrong crowd, in ninth grade, like my best friend got pregnant, and it was just all of the bad things that were available were like just handed to me on a platter, basically. So I started smoking cigarettes at a very young age. I was sexually active at a young age, just experimenting, anything at the time. It was fun. I was living my best life. And, but looking back on it now, I grieve for that, the little girl almost that I could have been, if I had had a solid foundation, kind of watching myself grow. So there was a lot of bumps and valleys. It's definitely things that I can look back on now as an adult and be grateful for those experiences, because obviously I'm grown into the person I am today. But it has given me a lot of compassion and understanding for other people and their experiences as well. But yeah, high school was extremely difficult. I had some friends here and there, good friends too, that kind of always pulled me out of my dark places, and active friends too, because I always wanted to be active. I had friends who skateboarded. I always wanted to skateboard. One of my best friends was on the soccer team. So I would be like, all right, take me running with you today. I'm going to go running with you. Like always trying to get me active. But, it was just still a lot of secrets that I was hiding. Nobody really knew me and what I had experienced as a girl. So it was always just not getting too close to people. And then, that also manifested in other ways. Like I had definitely eating, disordered eating problems, binging and starving and things like that. So it was just basically the whole combination thrown together throughout my teenage years.
Wow. Wow. And I know you have said that you did struggle a lot with depression during that time and even contemplated suicide as a kid. And there was something that happened that made you sort of stop and think, okay, this is not the path that I want to go down.
Yeah, absolutely. In my senior year of high school, I lost a friend to suicide. So kind of seeing that experience, watching all of us just kind of being like, what happened? And when we have seen him like that day before, we all had plans to go out that weekend. That was kind of like a reality. And just I remember watching his little brother give a speech at his viewing and just not understanding exactly what was going on and thinking about my little brother and what he would. And so that is I always say my saving grace is my ability to reach out and think about how other people would feel in a situation.
Wow, amazing.
And that was kind of that reality. And I never struggled with those thoughts again, but it was always kind of that reality that brought me back, that you're leaving other people behind that do love and care about you, even if you might not feel, even if you feel alone at times in the world, there's always somebody out there who loves you and wants you to be there.
And it sounds like you did have great people in your life who really love and care about you. Just as you're telling the story, I feel like it could be easy for someone to continue down that path after high school and as an adult, but obviously you didn't.
Right.
Can you talk about maybe some things that happened or reasons why you think you were able to change your trajectory?
There was, I think, I met my husband when we were very young. We were teenagers. He was 16, I was 17. And trust me, we've been through it all together, ups and downs, left and rights. And I don't know if it sounds cheesy to say this, but there is just that connection that we always kind of, maybe in a way we're those two lost souls that just kind of found each other. But we had a way of always being there for one another. So when I was at my lowest and my lows, he was always there for me. And then I could, kind of repay that for him. And it always just kind of worked out for us. So he's definitely one person in my life who has always kind of been there for me when I needed him and shown me strength. And so he's always been my shoulder to lean on, and, other people who are very important in my family. And, when we were young, we were together for 5 years and I got pregnant with now our oldest. And so that understanding is I had this opportunity now to give this child this life that I didn't get to have. I got to now build a foundation for him that is going to set him up for success in life that maybe I never had for myself. So it was just this opportunity. We never wanted children. It was just one of those things that you have to kind of stop and think about, that it was just meant to happen, whether it was God or the universe or a miracle or whatever it was, but it was put in our life at that very moment to just kind of get us right back on a good path. So that was kind of where it started. It was this understanding, all right, if we're going to do this, we have to really get our act together now. From there, it was just kind of like taking steps and building. So a couple years later, we were still struggling. I was working as a tattoo artist and my husband was doing lawn care, and it was well, what do we do now? And that's when he decided to join the military, just to kind of have a good foundation for our family to grow. So it was just like one opportunity kind of after another.
Yeah. That's so beautiful that, having a child was was sort of maybe not what you had planned for, but what you needed for both of you to sort of grow into being your best selves so that you could be there for your child. That's really beautiful. And at some point you started really trying to work on getting healthier yourself and focusing on eating better and trying to lose weight. Can you talk about that process?
Yeah, I think, like I said, health has always kind of been in the back of my mind. I loved to be active when I was younger, and I would always read like Shape magazine and everything. And so I tried everything under the sun, every diet, every exercise regimen, whatever it was, I tried it. And then I did have a lot of back injuries growing up. I was in a bunch of car accidents, and I do joke that I was only driving in one of them.
Okay.
But, and just being overweight, I always just had a really bad back. So it was when I was pregnant with my oldest, and I was having extreme back pain, sciatica nerve pain, and my toes were actually going numb. So I was getting really worried and upset. And I was going to the doctors relentlessly. And it was always, well, you need to lose weight, which I understood. And I knew that, but it was just kind of a blanket statement all of the time.
Right. Like, so how do I do that? What do I do?
Right. And I just wasn't getting anywhere. So I have this habit of like, if I don't understand anything, I just go back to school for it. And so
it's a good strategy. Just learn everything you can about it.
Yeah. I'll read something and I do. I always tell everyone to advocate for themselves, educate themselves. It's extremely important. And so I decided to go back to school, and I didn't know what I wanted to go for. I never thought I was going to go back to college after high school. And so I just kind of jumped on board with some of the things that they were offering through the military for spouses. And I decided to go back to school for complementary and alternative medicine. I was always interested in yoga and things like that. So I just thought, okay, this will be a good place to kind of start taking it more of it like a holistic approach, just because of some of the things that I was hearing and the fad diets and whatever it was. And that's when I kind of started to get a lot more into learning about yoga and just more holistic approaches to health, working more with nutrition, and why nutrition was so important. Because at that point, I was eating probably fast food a couple nights a week. And I knew it wasn't good for me, but I didn't understand quality of food. I didn't understand macros. I didn't understand any of that. It was basically, if you cut calories, you lose weight. That's what we're just always told.
That's the message you get.
Right. So I started experimenting with different things. We started eating a little bit better, trying to make just better choices. And we started feeling a little bit better. So it was just kind of small changes and understanding why it's important to look at your health and in a more of a preventative way, like preventing disease as opposed to like then having disease and having to cure it. Because I also have asthma. And so that was another thing that was really hard. Like I wanted to go out and run, but it was really challenging for me to breathe. Even walking up steps was challenging. So I was thinking about, okay, well, how do we stop our health from declining? Because at this point I had just had my second child. And I remember being really upset because my doctors wouldn't even allow me to try natural. I had a C-section with my first son. They wouldn't even allow me to try natural for my second. And it had been 5 years. And a lot of that kept coming down to my weight. And most likely I wasn't going to have natural anyways because of the complications from my first one. And that was just kind of heartbreaking for me, I guess, in a way. So it was just at that point, I wasn't sure if we were going to have more children. And I was just like, you know what, I'm going to get in the best health that I can if I decide to have more children, just to kind of see how that pregnancy was compared to my other two. But there was a lot going on at that time. Like I said, my youngest, I had just had him. He was an infant. I had him by myself because my husband was deployed for his first time.
Oh, wow.
So I was also serving as the FRG, the Family Readiness Group leader, the volunteer position for the military for my husband's company, and living on my own away from my family for the first time in my entire life.
That's a lot. And with
going to college.
Right, and going to college. Oh my gosh. And 2 kids and a young baby.
My oldest son was in the process of being diagnosed with autism at the time.
Oh my goodness.
Talk about, I always joke with everyone, if I survived the first couple of years as being a military wife, I can survive anything. Because I literally took everything on my plate at once.
Wow. Yeah. It sounds like you, just that alone would have been a lot, but you added more to it.
Yeah. So unfortunately, because of that, I was learning and educating myself, but I was still gaining weight. I was stressed. I wasn't taking the time to put those self-care practices into place that I was learning about. So it wasn't until a couple of years later when we actually moved to Germany. My husband got orders and we were living there, and it was on his second deployment, and a couple of the spouses wanted to try the CrossFit gym in town. And I had known about CrossFit because my husband had done it for years before. And he had tried to get me, but he was a fit military man who was working out 2 hours a day. I was like, you're right. And I was someone who like, maybe I went for a mile walk once a week.
Yeah. What was your health like at that time? Like, and also what was the process? Did you end up quitting smoking, or how did you end up, like some of the other habits that you were into? How did those end up falling away?
Okay. So when we moved to Germany, I was still a smoker. I was probably smoking about a pack a day. And I was going to, like, I would go to the gym on post, maybe a couple of times a week, maybe do the elliptical. And I had a neighbor who I would run with occasionally. So I was trying really hard, but I was at my heaviest at that point, which I always guess is around 250 pounds. And the reason I actually caved in and tried CrossFit was because I was going to a physical therapist off post for my back, a German physical therapist who recommended the CrossFit gym.
That's amazing. You don't hear that very often.
Not very often at all. So that was the first time I was like, well, and I had even was talking with her about my husband. I was like, he's in extremely good shape. He rucks like 15 miles with like 45 pounds on his back. Like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do what he does. And she's like, just go and check it out. And then some of the other spouses like kind of dragged me with.
Wow.
When our husbands deployed. So
what was that first CrossFit experience like for you?
I loved it right away. I loved, Susie was my coach. She had us doing like some planks and stuff and just like basic things, gave us a kettlebell, had us doing some kettlebell deadlifts, just kind of showing us some basic movements, explaining some of the other things that we would be doing. And I'd be like, well, I can't do that. Like a box jump. And well, okay. And she showed me like a bumper plate, like that big. And she's like, well, you can step or jump onto this. So she modified everything down to the basic level, because at that point, like I said, I was about 250 pounds and my back, I just was so scared to try anything. So it was very much that first session was just an introduction session. And I was scheduled to go back to the States to visit my family for 2 weeks or almost 3 weeks after that. So I was like, all right, well, I'll go to the introduction session and then I'll go on vacation.
Yeah.
I got back to the States and I went to the track every single day and I did like step ups onto the benches and push ups to the bench. Like, I was like, all right, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to see how in shape I can get. And I was going to try a CrossFit gym in the States, but I was just so nervous at that point. It took everything in my power just to go to the first one I went to. And I had already been like, all right, I like them. I'm going to go back there.
Right.
And I'm glad I did, because it was just the perfect place for me to experience CrossFit for the first time. It was like one of the first things that the coach said to me was, he's like, you need to leave your ego at the door. And I was like, what ego? I don't have an ego. He goes, oh no, I see you. You have an ego.
He called you out.
I was strong and I liked that. I was strong. I could, lift heavier weights and any of the strong days were my favorites. So, but I loved it so much that, every day I went to the track. And then the weekend we got back to the States, I had to go to class by myself because my friends were off vacationing in Paris. And it was my first workout was panic breathing. It was a partner workout. And one partner held the kettlebells in the front rack position,
Okay.
and the other partner rode. You started out with 500 meters and you switched, and then did 400, switched 300, all the way down to 100. And I was terrified because I had this poor partner who she kept having to put the kettlebells down because I kept having to break. Just having everyone cheer me on. And I still have a picture from that first workout, and it's one of my favorite pictures to this day.
That's amazing.
I just loved it from the beginning. And I enjoyed being able to modify things appropriately and still get a really good workout in, feel like I accomplished something. But I loved the opportunity and the ability to grow and the new challenges. And even to this day, still having that opportunity to still reach new challenges.
Yeah, that's amazing. What are some of the things that you did maybe in that first period of CrossFit that you really surprised yourself on that you thought maybe you'd never be able to do?
Pretty much everything. Well, like I said, I was very athletic when I was growing up. So back bends, gymnastics, I would spend hours in my backyard doing front walkovers. I could do splits, and I was always very flexible. So that was one of my first goals, was to be able to do a split again and be able to do a handstand and a back bend. And within, I would say, the first year and a half, I was able to do all three of those again.
Wow.
Yoga did help because I had some interest in yoga. And then when I met my coach, he actually encouraged me to try yoga because of my back. I was still having a lot of back injury, back pain. And so he said, well, try yoga to help kind of with the back pain. And so I would start out just doing it in my home. And I quickly fell in love with every aspect of yoga, just the mindfulness, the body awareness. I think that's kind of why I am a stickler on form through and through to this day. Even with my members, they don't get away with much with me. And that is mostly because of yoga and body awareness. And I feel like because of that, I can kind of explain to them what exactly they're supposed to be feeling as opposed to what they're just looking or supposed to look like in the movement. And just, mindfulness, the meditation, the just being able to kind of just sit with myself and process thoughts was amazing. And at the other end of that was also very difficult and challenging, because that is where a lot of my trauma that I shoved down for so long started coming back up. Because when I started CrossFit, a lot of it was to lose the weight. I'm going to lose this weight finally. But I never realized that there were so many reasons to why I was so heavy in the first place. All of my bad habits were a reflection of my childhood trauma that I never processed and I never dealt with growing up. So that was when we moved back to the States, and I was progressing. I was losing weight, but I was still struggling so much. I was still struggling with disordered eating. I was doing, it was pretty bad with the starved binge, and not starving myself completely. Better eating habits had progressed. I was making better choices, and I was making sure I was fueling myself better for my workouts. And I was looking at it more that food is important to just stay healthy and fueled. But my habits were I would not eat any chocolate for 3 weeks in a row. And then I'd bring home a 12-pack of cupcakes and I would eat it all right away. And then I would be really embarrassed and I'd feel really upset at myself. So that was a process that I knew, okay, there's another reason why I'm doing this. And so that's when I decided that I was going to go back to therapy when we moved back to the States.
Wow.
And I wasn't consistent with it either, but
it's all a process.
Yeah.
Well, it's so amazing that you had that insight to really listen to, okay, what is really the underlying driver of some of these behaviors? Because I think even finding CrossFit and finding the community and the movement and the exercise that you love and being able to start losing the weight is amazing. But I'm sure as you experience, until you start to really get down to the deeper issues, it's probably not going to be something that's sustainable or that's going to really have that impact on you.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's amazing. And you took yoga so far that you even ended up becoming a yoga teacher, correct?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I loved it. So I went back to yoga teacher training school. I started in Germany and I
Mm-hmm.
finished when we got here to San Antonio. And I was just lucky enough to the studio I finished my teacher training at. She asked me if I was interested in teaching, and I was like, absolutely. So yeah, I just kind of fell into that groove, and I love teaching yoga so much, and it's a big balance for me. But I love taking yoga even more.
Yeah.
So I always make sure I only teach yoga once a week now.
Mm-hmm.
But I always make sure I take yoga at least once a week as
Mm-hmm.
well. Because I think it's important to be led, and it's such a mindfulness practice that when you're just teaching it all the time, you lose that part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's true for anything. Even, I think when people start to become CrossFit trainers and train more, sometimes
Mhm.
that they end up not working out as much themselves too. And so
Yeah.
it's something I think for no matter what it is that you're doing or you're teaching, to make sure that you're doing it as well.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and then you and your husband ended up actually opening a CrossFit affiliate. How did you guys decide to do that?
Yeah, when we moved to San Antonio, it was for only 9 months originally. The military moved us here. He was in the
Mhm.
paramedic course, and then he ended up getting orders here. So we just ended up staying. And then when we bought our house, we moved to a part of town that didn't have a good option of CrossFit gyms that we
Mhm.
kind of vibed with, because at that time I wasn't super competitive.
Mhm.
So there is a very competitive aspect of CrossFit. And I do think it's important to find the right gym and community for you.
Mhm.
Because like, I remember like, they would always have everyone shout out their times at the end,
Mhm.
and I would always be last. And it would just get to the point where I'd just be like last, and everyone would laugh and I'd laugh and it'd be fun.
Yeah.
But so we were training in our garage for a while. And my husband's just like, and once again, like I said, when I don't quite understand something, I'm just like,
Mhm.
I'm just going to educate myself on
Just
it.
go
So I
all
was
in.
like, you know what? Because we have a joke that he's only allowed to give me one correction per training session. So I was like, I'm going to get my level 1, because he had already gotten his when we were living
Okay.
in Germany.
Okay.
And I did. I went, and then, yeah, we started kind of the process of looking into the area we were living in, and there were no
Mhm.
CrossFit gyms within like the Converse area. So we were like, all right, let's do it. We're just going to do it. We've never done anything traditionally the way before. And
Yeah.
it was getting to a point where for our family, we wanted him out of the military. We wanted him home more. We didn't want
Mhm.
any more deployments or anything like that. So,
Mhm.
because that does take a toll too on family and mental health and
Absolutely.
everything. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, we decided 3 years ago, well, going on 4 years in October. This past October was 3 years.
Okay.
That yeah, we were just going to go and see what happens. And
Yeah.
so
That's
far, it's
amazing.
been really successful. So
That's incredible. What has
it's
been the most rewarding part for you about owning the gym?
obviously paying it forward. I say that all the time. When I was younger, I was always a lost soul. I never really knew what I wanted to do with my life, or like as career wise.
Mhm.
Um, so I think finally having something, but I think I knew I wanted to work with people in a way.
Mhm. Mhm.
One of the things I loved most about tattooing was people coming in and sharing their stories with
Yes.
you of why they're getting that tattoo.
Yes.
So being able to, like share my story with people and inspire and motivate them,
Mhm.
and the members who are coming into our gym, and being able to share with me and open up with me as to why they're there. Because once again, everyone has different goals, and it's
Mhm.
awesome. Like I think CrossFit is just a great exercise program in general, like to get fit
Mhm.
and healthy, but it's so life-changing too. There's such a deeper underlying level to CrossFit that you don't experience in a lot of other, fitness
Mhm.
regimes or regimens. And it's just that community, that encouragement, being able to progress and do things the way you want. Like I just had a member the other day going, he's trying to get a pull up, and he's like, oh, one day. And I was like, I used to say that too. I used to say that too. I used to say one day I'm going to be able to do it. I mean, guess what? Now I can. So just keep doing it.
Yeah.
And just being able to like encourage and motivate people like that is awesome. And watching them progress then, and
Mhm.
finally reach goals and not even maybe reach the goals that they originally came in with. It's then learning what's going to work for them and their lifestyle and giving them a more sustainable way to get fit and healthy. And that's a huge message for me because I have tried everything. You know, I starved myself forever. I went running one time with my oldest. He was 3 at the time. And I was so like hungry. I passed out running.
Wow.
Because I just wasn't feeling myself. I was drinking meal replacement meals for 2 meals out of my day and then eating a small dinner, thinking that was the fastest way to lose weight. And while it might be, it's not healthy, it's not sustainable. And then I gained the weight back. So this is the first thing I've ever done. You know, it's been 7 years now since I've started. But I always tell people that time passes no matter what. And that's one thing I remember hearing when I first started. Time passes no matter what. So where are you going to be in 7 years if you don't do anything? Thinking back, I could be where I was now if I never did anything. And that's just so sad. And, you know, because just the growth, just the courage to be able to do things that I never thought I'd be able to do. Even going to get my level 1 was terrifying. And just being able to overcome that fear and do it. And now I'm going for my level 2 in April. So
that's exciting.
Like, I know.
That's amazing. Wow. Okay, give us a comparison to like who you were 7 years ago versus who you are now and the difference there. Because I think what you just said is so powerful. I think it's so easy for people just to get stuck in sort of their same patterns and their same life and thinking that it's not going to change or, I'll do it later. But obviously you intentionally made some decisions that now put you on this path to where you are, you said, the healthiest and the best shape you've ever been at age 38, which is incredible.
38. Yeah. I think who I was this person who always wanted to be somebody better, not somebody different. And I say that a lot because there's always been a part of, I've always loved who I was deep down on the inside. I knew I was a good person and I had a lot of love to give. I loved my family very much. I was a good person. And I never believed that my weight made me any less of a person. But it was almost like I was hiding down there. So there was very few people who got to see me. And this kind of process of growing out of, you know, that shell and like sharing, being more vulnerable, because that was another thing I was never good at. I was taught to keep secrets. And then I always had these shameful secrets that I didn't want anyone to know because I thought they would think differently of me. So it turned from I think, person who was hiding and so worried about what everyone else would think about them into growing into this person who is like, love me for me. If you don't, I'm sorry. I'm sure there's somebody out there for you, but I just know I have so much to give. And I know it's so important for people to hear my message, because if you can inspire one person to go from that lost person who's just hiding from the world into a person who's going to give so much to their community,
it changes so many lives.
Family. Yeah. Like just being a better person for your family is going to help them grow into better people. And I always love to say, like, grow through what you go through and think of it as a journey. And it's never going to be up and down. Like, I went to therapy and I didn't like the therapist I was going to, so I didn't go back for a while. And I was like, okay, no, I need to go back now. And it's okay to go up and down. And I also say it's okay to have those bad days. Like, you're going to have those bad days. It's now, how do you come out of those bad days? You have your toolbox and you use your tools every day. And it's just finding what tools work best for you. And for me, it's like yoga, it's meditation, and it's CrossFit. It's choosing better foods that are going to make me feel better. Because we know how our bodies feel after we all get indigestion when we're not eating the best foods. Like, there's no lying. We know what feels better. And it's okay, like I said, it's okay to eat those foods sometimes and enjoy it, but just find what's right for you. Because of the same aspect that it's not healthy to eat fast food 7 days a week, it's also not mentally healthy maybe to like refrain from your absolute favorite foods for months and months at a time, unless that's in your goal. So I think as a CrossFit old ex CrossFit Games athlete, I think you can kind of understand there's different seasons in your life. And so I always tell people, if you're not getting paid to do CrossFit, please eat a chocolate piece of cake on the weekend if you want it.
Yes, I can definitely
so much better for your mental health. So.
Can definitely relate, right? There's a time for it. If it's part of your goals, like you said, if that's your job and you're training, and that's your goal. But for most people, we're doing CrossFit so we can be better at life and enjoying life. And so we want to make sure we are enjoying life. If it's having a piece of cake at our kid's birthday party or, whatever it is. So.
And also reaching out for help is so extremely important, because there are times that you need it. There are times where I'm not, like I said, I could not figure out for the life of me why I knew what I was supposed to be eating. I knew the things I was supposed to be putting in my body. And yet I would still have this unhealthy pattern of just just binging on it. I knew there was an underlying issue that I couldn't unpack that by myself. And I just needed somebody to help me unpack it. And that's completely fine as well. Being able to reach out is one of the best things that I've done for myself. So
that's amazing. I can definitely relate to that too. I think, for the longest time, I always tried to handle things by myself and like, I got this, I just have to try harder, do something, but it's incredible just by sometimes reaching out or asking for help, even in small ways, how that can really accelerate your whole process of growth versus you trying to go through it on your own.
Yeah.
That's huge. Well, I'm so inspired by your story and the way that you are using all of your experience to help other people in your family and your community and for sharing it here too. And it always just is so incredible and powerful to me when I hear people say that CrossFit saved my life. And I know you've said that. And it just gives me, like, it's just so incredible what CrossFit has the power to do. Like you said, it's not like any other fitness regimen, but there's something about it in the community and the ways it brings people together and the ways that it helps people gain confidence and overcome challenge. It's just incredible. So to see that in your life and then to see the ways that you are paying it forward to help other people it's amazing.
Thank you. And I just have to say I'm inspired by you too. Absolutely. And that you use your platform to just share so many inspiring stories is amazing. And I just have to thank you for that. Especially your last few posts on Instagram have been very inspiring for me. So I just want to thank you for sharing and being vulnerable too. That's amazing.
Oh, well,
and it definitely
you.
helps all of us, other people out there, do the same.
Totally. Yeah. There's so much, like you said earlier, so much power in being vulnerable because, like you said, the more you keep things to yourself, you feel like you're going through it alone, but everybody's going through something. And if we can kind of help each other and be there for each other in whatever way we need to, it just makes it easier. So thank you. I want to ask the 3 questions that I normally wrap up with at the end of every podcast. So the first one is, what are the 3 things that you do now that have the biggest positive impact on your health?
The 3 things I do now, meditation, definitely. And I will wrap yoga into that because I do encourage people to understand that meditation isn't always just sitting in a cross-legged position, just thinking to yourself. You can meditate in a variety of different ways, even going for a walk in the woods, just kind of being with your thoughts. Definitely clearing your mind, finding stillness is very important. CrossFit, staying active. And I wouldn't even just say maybe CrossFit every single day, but just being active, moving my body. And that could be as simple as like, if I've been sitting most of the day and I'm not going to be able to get to the gym, I'm going to get up and I'm going to walk around my block, 3 or 4 times, depending on how big your block is. Just staying active and moving. And then being present. Being present is so extremely important, especially I would say if you have a lot of trauma. and your healing, in your process of healing, because we want to focus so much sometimes on what could have been, what was done to us, maybe even the things that we did that we're not proud of in the past. But just bringing yourself back to the present and saying, okay, look at how far I have come. That's amazing. And I need to be proud of that. And those experiences are what brought me here. And that I can be grateful and thankful for. So those, I would say, are my 3 biggest.
I love that. I love that. That's beautiful. What about one thing that you're working on or something you think would have an impact on your health, but you haven't tried implementing it yet?
One thing I'm working on, oh boy, I'm just working. I think just continuing to be vulnerable, especially in my marriage, I think, because, for me personally, being somebody who shoved things down for so long and held how I was feeling, it's very hard for me to open up still to this day. It's been 28 years since my abuse has came to light, and it does not get easier to talk about it. So, but I do know the more I do open up, the more I can be myself, the closer I feel to my husband, the closer I feel in our communication, the closer I feel to other humans around me in my community, that I'm not just this CrossFit coach. I want them to be able to open up to me. And in order to do that, I have to be more open with everyone else. So that's something I'm still working on, and setting boundaries too. That's important.
Of course. It's always a balance. All right. What does a healthy life look like to you, Haley?
To me, it's just being happy, spending time with my family, doing the things that we enjoy, getting out into nature. Just for me, it's building something for my children so they can have the best life that they work for and reach for and strive for. And just being a positive light within my community, however far that reaches, I know that I'm here for a reason, and I just want to do the best I can do for anyone who's in my life or anyone I can touch. And just let them know that there's hope out there if they are where I was, or even deeper in a hole, like there's wrong in the world and there's sadness, but there's also so much good out there too, and so many good people. So
that's beautiful.
Yes. Yeah. One thing I always like to say is, and I heard this somewhere and I can't remember where I heard it, so I'm probably ripping somebody off, but it's a lot about you have to find the opportunity where you've prepared yourself. So you're working on yourself, and you're setting kind of like your goals into place, and then where that opportunity comes in. Kind of knowing where those 2 aspects meet is a really good place. I don't know, to go to kind of build off of.
Yes.
So like preparing yourself and then also being open to other opportunities. So for example, if I would have said no to my friends who wanted me to go to that CrossFit gym with them, my life could be 100% different at this point.
Totally.
So just being open to those opportunities.
That's amazing. Yes. Being open, just doing your thing, and then the opportunities will come, especially when you continue to do the right thing and help, yourself and help the people around you. So, well, thank you again for sharing your story and being so vulnerable here. And I know you've inspired me. I'm sure you'll inspire a lot of other people who listen. So thank you again so much for taking the time, Haley.
Thank you, Julie.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you or someone you know has a story to share on a future episode of Pursuing Health, please write me at info@pursuing-health.com. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please also consider subscribing and giving it a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does help to get the word out to more people.